So welcome to part 4 of how to solve the Rubik's Cube with no memorization. In my first two videos, I explained to you how to rotate any three pieces of the cube without screwing up the rest of the cube using the formula x, y, x prime, y prime. And in this video, I'm going to teach you how to rotate any three pieces of the cube using the formula z, x, y, x prime, y prime, z prime. I just added a z to the beginning and the end of the formula. And the reason why I did this, or the reason why you would do this, making the formula more complicated, is by adding the z to the beginning and the end, it actually gives us a lot more flexibility with how we rotate any three pieces. It allows you to control the orientation of the three pieces while you rotate them, and it also allows you to have infinite possibilities of which three pieces that you rotate. So it just gives you a lot more flexibility. It's a little more complicated, but it gives you a little more flexibility and a lot more control of how you rotate any three pieces of the cube. And this is, once again, this is much more complicated than my first three videos, so I suggest if you haven't mastered the formula x, y, x prime, y prime, I suggest that you master that first before you use this formula, which is z, x, y, x prime, y prime, z prime. So let's get started right away and I'll explain what everything means. Alright, so let's take a look at this cube. Everything is solved except for three pieces of the cube. This piece, and this piece need to be rotated. Those are the only three pieces that are not solved on this cube. And notice how all three pieces are in the same layer. They're all in the top layer. And one of the conditions for rotating any three pieces of the cube is that two need to be in the top layer and one needs to be not in the top layer. So we have not satisfied that condition because all three pieces are in the same layer. So what I'm going to do for my move, which is z, my z is going to take this piece from the top layer and make it not in the top layer. So I'm just going to rotate this right side counterclockwise. Once again, that is my z. So now that this piece which we're rotating is not in the top layer, it's in the bottom layer. And my two other pieces that we're rotating are in the top layer. So now our conditions have been met. We have two pieces in the top layer and we have one piece not in the top layer. And once again, this right side counterclockwise was my move z. Alright, so now we can move on to our next part of the formula, which is x. X, once again, is any sequence of moves that correctly places this piece into its correct position. This piece needs to go into this position right here. So x is any sequence of moves that does that. So this is a pretty short sequence. In order to do that, we're going to rotate the left side clockwise, bottom layer, and then the left side counterclockwise. Alright, so now we have correctly placed this piece into its correct position. Notice how yellow, orange, and blue, yellow, orange, and blue. Alright, so now we can move on to our next part of the formula, which is our y. Our y just replaces this piece which we just correctly placed with the other piece that we're rotating in the top layer. So in order to do that, we're just going to rotate the top layer counterclockwise. Alright, this piece just replaced the other piece. Alright, so now we can move on to our next part of the formula, which is x prime. X prime is always the opposite of x. If you don't know how to find the sequence x prime, please go back to my first two videos. So our x prime is going to be the left side clockwise, bottom layer, left side counterclockwise. Alright. So if you're having trouble memorizing what your x and x prime is, for x, we took the piece from here, we brought it over, and up. So that means our x prime is going to be the opposite of that. Our piece started here, so it's going to go down and then to the right. That's just my way of memorizing what my x prime is going to be if you know what your x is. Alright, so now we can move on to our next part of the formula, and which is our y prime. our y was top counterclockwise, so that means our y prime is going to be top clockwise. And now moving on to our last part of the formula, you probably can just figure this out just by looking at the cube. Our z prime is going to be the opposite of z. Since our z was right counterclockwise, then our z prime is going to be right clockwise. And notice, by doing our z and our z prime, we actually rotated the three pieces of the cube, and we also orientated the three pieces of the cube correctly as well. If we did not do that z and z prime, we would have rotated the three pieces the same exact way, but they would not have been orientated the correct way. So it gives you a lot more flexibility and control, a little bit more complicated, but I try to make this video as easy as possible. I am going to be making some more examples of some more complicated or that are more difficult. So I hope you're enjoying these, and until my next one, I will see you later.